Today, I'm in the company of Armando Fumagalli, professor of semiotics and history of cinema, and director of the Master in International Screenwriting and Production at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Milan. Professor Fumagalli is the author of several books on communications, the media, and the relationship between literature, cinema, and television. He has taught and lectured in many universities and screenwriting courses in Europe, the United States, and South America. Since 1999, he is also a development consultant for the Lux Vide TV production company. And in this position, he has been active in the productions of several international TV miniseries, such as John Paul II with CBS, Sant'Agostino, so in English, Restless Heart, Anna Karenina, War and Peace, the European 4 miniseries War and Peace, and most recently the Rai Netflix series Medici, Masters of Florence. So welcome, Armando, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So today we'll talk about the entertainment industry as seen from the point of view of contemporary Italy. And we'll observe how Italy positions itself in the global development of cinema and television. So, to start, in Italian culture, there is a strong sense of connection between literature and cinema. From early cinema and post-war Italy to today, literary adaptations seem to be a fundamental source of inspiration in Italian TV and cinema. Can you give us some examples and can you explain why?
Yes. Well, the strict relation, the close relation between literature and cinema is something typical of mature industries and of good industries, I would say. So in Italy, there has been different periods regarding this. For example, in the 50s and the 60s, there were more strict relations between industry and cinema than what happened in the 70s and the 80s. But starting again from the end of the 90s, and this is due, in my opinion, especially to some production company and some producers, because many people tend to think to cinema as something developed and done mainly by directors. But there is also, and it's very, very important, the task of producers and of screenwriters. So I was saying at the end of the 90s, due to the birth of new production companies and to the coming of new producers, there has been a renewal of relations between literature and television and cinema. And in last years, we have seen again important productions about this. You have been mentioning these two big productions in which I've been working. One was War and Peace, and the other was a very good Anna Karenina. But there has also been, for example, My Brilliant Friend, that has been a co-production between Italy and HBO. There's been also a not so good, in my opinion, TV series about Il Nome della Rosa, the name of the rose. And also in cinema, there has been many, many adaptations. One of the first that in some way made a new wave of relation between literature and cinema has been Io non ho paura, the adaptation of a book of Ammanniti that was directed by Gabriele Salvatore. And this is very interesting because this has been something made especially by a production company that is called Cattolica. That is one of the best production companies in Italy. They managed all the project, and they were the connection between the novel and the director, that was Gabriele Salvatore. So the last years have been very fruitful in this area.
Well, you actually deal more in depth with literary adaptations in your new book, I vestiti nuovi del narratore, the new clothes of the narrator. And as you mentioned, you were involved in TV adaptations of classics, but also of more recent books like Alessandro D'Avenia's Bianca come il latte, rossa come il sangue. My question is, what are the challenges involved in turning a piece of literature into a product for TV? And what does the different medium add to literature? And Can you explain the differences between a translation and an adaptation?
Yes. Well, adaptation is not a translation because you have to think that you are going to a new medium with a new audience. Normally, well, the question is very, very broad. I can answer with
Yeah.
a course of maybe 50 hours about different aspects of this. But to say only the essential, there is a new medium and a new audience. Normally, for every person, if you have one reader in a novel, you normally have 50 or 100 viewers in cinema or television. So the audience is much, much broader. And also, obviously, there is something that you can convey with the words that you have to translate into images. So the adaptations are always, always, always a challenge. In my book, I have done 4 in-depth analysis, and one on purpose was an analysis of a book that appeared to be already a book done for cinema. It was a book of John Grisham, that was The Firm, a thriller. When you read the book, you feel that it's written like a script. Mm-hmm. But when they translated, and it was an excellent adaptation, when they adapted this book for the screen, they made lots, hundreds and hundreds of decisions and of changes to make this great book, the great bestseller, into a very, very thrilling film that has been one of the best thrillers of the 90s. So the choices are many, many, many. I just give you a very small example. For example, in Bianca come il latte, rossa come il sangue, that now has been published also in US, White as Milk, Red as Song. For HarperCollins, I think. In the book, the main character, that is Leo, has a small motorbike, and he loves this motorbike. But when they went, and in the script there was a motorbike, but when they went to shoot, they saw that visually it didn't work well, so they changed this into a bicycle. And at first time, the writer was a little bit upset because the motorbike had some importance in the novel. But then when he saw the images, he said, okay, no, the bicycle works much better to watch a bicycle, also because in Italy, a young boy have to have an helmet so you couldn't see his face, etc. There are things that you never expect before, but when you go to the screen and when you adapt, you have hundreds of things. Also, there were obviously many more important issues. For example, the issue of passing of time. When in the novel, in 2 or 3 pages, there was a passage of 3 or 4 months that was not so easy to do in cinema. So the writers of the adaptation had to adapt this development, the time development of all the story, to take this as something important, and many, many other things that one could say. But I have been studying a lot of adaptation, and I know that there are some general rules, but every novel has its own challenges and its demand for creative solutions.
Yeah, no, also because like when you do a literary translation, it feels like, you know, translating a concert for violin into a concert for piano. Yes. Whereas when you're doing like an adaptation, it feels like translating an opera into kind of a visual image, like the snapshot or the posters.
Yes. Well, in some cases also, well, obviously there is an intervention of the author as a new author. I mean, I was mentioning The Firm. In this case, for example, the producers of The Firm didn't want to be so bitter as the novel was. They said, because the novel has a very bitter ending, in some way a little bit cynical, and that was typical of the first books of John Grisham. But they said, we don't want to give this cynical message to the audience. And they found in the novel 1 page that gave them a clue for a different ending. an ending that respected the characters, respected the main idea of the novel, but was less cynical and less bitter. And in my opinion, it's much better the ending of the film. So if people are interested, can read the novel and watch the film, and then decide what is best. I think the ending of the film is best.
Mm-hmm.
Is better.
This is also where we're tapping into the difference between what a writer does and what a screenwriter does. And you're the director of a master's program at the Cattolica University of Milan, and you have taught screenwriting for many years, including also the National School of Cinema. How do you form the next writers? And what is in high demand in Italy? Who are the script writers that are most notable now?
Yeah. Well, I think that to be a good screenwriter, you have to have a couple of things that it's not easy to have both. It's to have a big culture. You have to have read many books, to be a person that is in touch with life, because you have to be true in what you write and what to say. But also you have to know some very specific rules and some very specific and technical skills that are necessary to write a good script. So our goal in the master's program in which I'm director was to find people who were very well educated, especially in literature, philosophy, and all what is related to human conditions, and to try to give them the technical skills to transform them into good screenwriters. And I must say that this idea has been proved effective. I mean, we have many alumni, former students that are being very successful producers and writers. Only this last week we had 3 or 4 prime time TV shows in which we had former students as writers or writers, etc. So this been very common. We have tried to, I would say, to insert in the Italian culture, in people educated with a strong literary culture, the specific skills that come from Hollywood. I'm not shy in saying this. We have been hiring and inviting, and I must say people come very easily and they're very happy to come to Milan to teach. Some high-ranking professionals that work in the American industry and in the Italian industry and also in the English industry. So this mix has proved to be very good and very effective. So at the moment, so the master is going very well on this area. And now what is needed and what everyone looks for is in Italy is people who are possibly bilingual, who speaks Italian and English, and can write in international productions, because we have also in Italy has come the wave of the new platforms, Netflix, Amazon, etc. And also if we are in some way a very small country, and there is only maybe 1% of the total budget of Netflix is spent on Italian TV series. The 1% of Netflix for the Italian market is very important. It means an increase of 20% of the overall budget. It means that production companies have more work to do, and they need more young people, and especially they need people that can work on international level, and this is what everyone is looking for now.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned like the international markets, you worked in Chile, Argentina, Spain, and Switzerland, the United States, both in Los Angeles and in New York. Can you give us a sense of how Italian cinema and TV are perceived abroad, and what are the markets that are most receptive to Italian productions?
Yes, well, here it is very different from the people you talk to, because obviously there are people who are in the cinema industry. They know the authors that have been winning an Oscar, for example, Sorrentino, etc. But I must say that are not really popular among, so to say, the common people, normal people. Also, there is a very different reception of Italian films in countries like, for example, Argentina or United States. Argentina, many people in Argentina have Italian ancestors. and ancestors, and they love Italian cinema. They know Italian cinema and Italian television, etc. United States have such a big market, and they see a very, very few international products. So I would say Italian cinema and Italian television is much less known in the US than in Latin America. So at the moment, I must say that on a very big international scale, there is no Italian films that are very well known. I mean, the last ones were the Life is Beautiful, La Vita è Bella, Cinema Paradiso, Nuovo Cinema Paradiso, and also Il Postino, that is a strange mix of a novel that was from an author from Chile, a film shot in Italian with a French actor and with an English director. So it was not so completely Italian, but it was Italian in the taste. I must say that this is a very old image of Italy, because it's the Italy of the South, etc. And we still do not have something that represents the modern, the Italy of today. And we hope it will come, because also La Grande Bellezza, The Great Beauty of Sorrentino, who won the Oscar, in some way represents this, in my opinion, old way of looking at Italy, because it's the Rome of Fellini or something like that. But it's going better with some international TV series. For example, the Medici, for which we have been working on, has had a very good international reception. In United States, is on Netflix, etc. Now we are working on a TV series on Leonardo da Vinci. That is they are going to shoot it at the beginning of December, and will be another big international project. There is Sony attached, Sony Television, United States. So I think it will be another big international project. I would like that something contemporary, Italian contemporary, could be a real big hit. And I hope this will happen in the next few years, because the industry is growing, is having more strength and roots, and I'm sure this will happen.
So who are the Italians that are active or in Hollywood? We talked in a previous episode of the podcast about Milena Canonero and her impact as a costume designer. What is the Italian contribution there, and also to the global entertainment industry? Who are the names or the people you would underline?
Yeah, well, obviously in Hollywood, people know the people who win an Oscar, but also there are some talents that are not directors, etc. One that is very well known is Ennio Morricone, that won an Oscar to the career, but he was very, very well known and very respected before. We have also some good musicians who are known. Dario Marianelli, that works in England. He won an Oscar also. As directors, they know very well Gabriele Muccino. He did some films, some international films, but it's interesting that he shot films that were born as American films. I cannot say that The Pursuit of Happiness, with starring Will Smith, is a film by Gabriele Muccino, like other Italian films directed by him. He's a very good director, and he has been part of this industry. And this also again says what we were saying before. I mean, the fact that in a film the director has an important part, but it's not the author with capital A, not always, at least. Not always.
Definitely. This is it's similar to like the experience of design when we talk about made in Italy. Sometimes you have like an Italian designer, but all the rest is produced or by other capital or other.
Yes. No. The film is A film is really a collective work, for sure. I would say that the three pillars are screenwriter, producer, and director. But from film to film, you can see that maybe one of them has a more important role. As everyone knows, Gone with the Wind was mainly the work of the producer, David O. Selznick. While some films, I would say The Truman Show is, in my opinion, mainly a film of the screenwriter, Andrew Niccol, that is much more similar to other films of Andrew Niccol than any other thing. And in some other cases, there are films that are mainly films of the director, and it can happen when, I don't know, when Steven Spielberg directs a film or Martin Scorsese directs a film. Normally it's much more a film of the director, but normally the authorship is shared, and it's very interesting. And speaking on this, I can mention in these days, end of October, beginning of November, in some theaters there is a very, very interesting documentary that I've been able to watch because I was one of the participated to the crowdfunding campaign, a film that now, a documentary that is now in the theaters, that is called Making Waves, and it's about the art of sound design, not of music, but of the design of the normal sounds in a film. And if you watch that documentary, you will never see any film the same way, because you perceive how much is important to work well on the dimension of sound. It's a beautiful documentary that I hope you can watch when it comes on, maybe on DVD or on some platforms. But the fact of sound gives you an idea of how many things are important to do a good film.
Thank you. A last quick question, since you following on what you were saying about the importance of the screenwriters, the producers, and the executives. In a recent interview, you said that, and I quote, "What is being produced does not depend mainly on the market, but much more on the culture and values of the writers, producers, and executive community." So you say, what are the new trends then in cinema and TV, and how will cinema and TV will be consumed in 20 years? In your opinion?
This quote is something I strongly believe in it, especially since and in the last 20 years I've been knowing many people who work in the industry in different positions and levels, both in Italy and in US, because people tend to think that television or cinema are a reflection, they represent a country like it is. But absolutely it is not, because cinema and television are always the result of a process of creation, of selection, and of thinking that is done by, at the end, very, very few people. I mean, the real people who are important in Hollywood, the showrunners, the writers, the producer, could be few hundred, 300, 500, 800. And with this number, you have more or less everything that comes out of Hollywood. For example, just to mention one of many aspects, the image that we have of United States is an image with much less religion and much less faith than the real country has. Because every one of us that come from abroad, when we come to the United States and we know real people, we see that, well, this is a country where many people still go to church, many people still have a faith, etc. And in these aspects, if 90% of films and on TV series do not say absolutely anything about this aspect, that it's very, very important. This is a process of selection, interpretation, etc., that is effective in many different ways, more or less in every country. What I insist on also, I did a book that is called The Creatività al Potere, that is about the culture of Hollywood and the cultural interpretation that the cinema and television industry makes in every different country is absolutely this. Well, every country has its own history. And for example, in Italy, we have had in the end of the 90s and in the first 10 years of 2000, a big number of religious TV miniseries that were big successes. You mentioned John Paul II, but we did also a TV miniseries on 2 or 3 other different popes. We did a Life of the Virgin Mary, etc., and they were very, very successful. But it's something specific of Italy, and it happened because there were a group of people and a big production company that made this proposal to the national network, that is RAI, and we did that. But in other countries, there was no one who did that proposal, and they didn't do that. So this is something that happens more or less everywhere. What will happen in 10 or 20 years, I cannot say, because it will depend from the people who will work. And maybe someone has a absolute new idea that is fascinating, etc., and it can be very, very successful with a new film or a new TV series or opening a new trend. And this is good because there is space for creativity, space for innovation, space for also new ideas. And but what I can say from now, there is no guarantee that that idea is, or that ideas, or that TV series, or that films will be in some way a perfect representation or an equalized representation of how is a country or how is a culture.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. So to recapitulate, today we talked about TV productions, literary adaptations as a key repository of narrative materials, about Italy's position in the entertainment industry, and also about this notion of entrepreneurship, of doing TV, doing cinema seriously as an impresa, where impresa in Italian means both company and adventure. So in running a business, but also in producing a movie, there is a collaborative adventure. I invite you to continue the conversation on these topics on Twitter at ITA Innovators or at Luca Cottini. And if you're interested in Italian Innovators, you can visit the official page of the podcast at www.italianinnovators.com, where you can also find the episodes and other information about the project. For now, I really want to thank you again, Professor Fumagalli, for your availability and your contribution today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks for listening. Arrivederci e alla prossima.